And without further ado, we are going to go ahead and start the 11th recap episode previously on Forbidden Lands. This time, once again, in live format with a special guest star, one of the original cast members of Forbidden Lands, the TV series, the epic television lifetime event. We have Risky here in the studio today, which is spectacular.
And what an honor it is to finally be invited to Forbidden Land Z.
Listen to this. I just heard you actually on I didn't hear you. I saw you on a video on demand live streaming. What was it? A service of some kind. Not a week ago.
Based service.
Discussing how you felt this format was outdated. So the fact that you're coming back to the live podcast broadcast situation, that means a lot to me.
I just want to get this straight. That wasn't me. That was Risklock Holmes. But we look very similar.
Oh, Okay, so that was.
I've always been a fan of the live podcast type scenario style.
Okay, great. Well, I will have to determine what the story is with the doppelganger situation that's going on here,
and the Black Dale was also on there. Right.
The suspicious Black Dale. Yeah, he certainly said a lot of very derogatory things that I'm not going to discuss on this broadcast. But
I think it's the thing with feet.
Right. And that other thing, yeah. So
yeah.
Let's see here. So you play Venaris on the show.
That I do.
Right. And Venaris is could you just give a little bit of background as to who is Venaris?
So Venaris is an Alderlander, which is a type of human in the Forbidden Lands who migrated into where our party is with his, I suppose, tribe of people, and fought for them in their military, which was kind of a mandatory thing for men of his age. And he lost all of his friends in a battle and moved to the original point of the first episode of the Forbidden Land Z, rather the second episode, because the first episode was not actually a thing, the Hollows, where he became a guard and slowly began drinking away his memory of the friends that he lost.
Wow. Okay, so kind of a somber backstory when it comes to Venaris, and one that sort of speaks to kind of the trials and tribulations faced by mankind as they entered into the wild and sometimes terrifying Forbidden Lands.
Right. And I also just wanted to make a character that was not just like a hero and was not just like this perfect person, but someone that was more on the kind of like emotionally injured side despite his physical attributes. In fact, I kind of was hoping when I made the character that he would be kind of like a thing that dragged the party down. But when the other characters were announced and I realized that he was going to be the only fighter in the party and the only physically able member of the party to actually start fights, I kind of had to steer away from that a little bit and make him like less emo teen 13-year-old girl.
Okay, so he was originally devised as like almost it sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like an emo, like a cross between Tony Stark and Avril Lavigne.
Right. Just someone to just kind of like for the party to lift up and eventually become more powerful because of that, through the power of friendship. But as I said, had to take a little turn away from that. It did end up working out for the better with the relationship between Throkkar and Venaris, though.
Right.
Yeah.
So Venaris was kind of called into duty because he felt as though no one else in the party was capable of fighting accurately or well, or what was.
in the OOC field, the out of character field, that's what happened. But in the actual in game field, it from slamming a hammer into a cliff.
Okay, so you did cut out there just a little bit, but
Oh,
it sounds like you were referring to the terrifying situation. I think it was, what was it, episode 4 or episode 5, where Venaris ended up maiming himself.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And that, I was a nail biter because I was afraid that, who knows what could happen at this point. They aren't even out of the hollows. He could be permanently scarred to the point where, I mean, he may never even walk again. So,
Nah, it made me really nervous too because I was, like, as I said, Veneris was kind of like at that point the only capable fighter, not capable, but more like just the best fighter in the party, uh, because of the amount of it's just the stats that he has, and the way that I made him through the XP level that we had was just uh, it's just like to have a disability on him at the start is like, wow, we haven't even we had our first like tutorial battle and now he's crippled for life.
right, yeah, he's almost, he's too good in a way, and perhaps being kind of brought back down to earth, sort of like an Icarian, I don't know if that's how you say Icarisian fable, where he flies so close to the sun, or in this case, kind of an underdark grave with ghosts, and he loses the ability to use one of his feet super well.
Yeah,
Wow.
very
Um,
unfortunate.
it is, and you did mention earlier his relationship with Throkar. I mean, Venaris is a real team player. He's a guy who is not afraid to risk his life for the rest of the party, for the group, and to make sure that people are surviving.
Right.
And so, what would you say, like, in the short time that he's gotten to know the rest of the group? What's Venaris's take on these other party members? What's he think of them?
So Veneris sees Throkkar as a friend. Not just a friend, but someone that's experienced something similar to him. Hearing that Throkkar lost his friends in episode 1 of the Forbidden Lands when he was on his way to the Hollows and encountered that band of orcs before they had actually a chance to assault the Hollows, and losing I believe it was 2 of his friends and one of them being captured, Woldreg. um, the idea that someone else kind of uh, had that burden on them of losing their friends and surviving the encounter was, I guess, comforting to him, and he thought that he'd be able to place faith in the dwarf that is Throkar, despite the kind of shaky start that they got off to. Srodid, he sees as sort of like a lesser being, not in the sense that he's like more, more powerful or whatever, but the fact that sort of isn't really compatible with the rest of the party, sort of deal. Like, does not work well with other people, and is just sort of like the goblin that kind of just, I don't know, tries to do some stupid shit while we're trying to get the task done. And then the elf now, he sees German as a cowardly guy who has a little bit of usefulness, but is still trying to prove himself. And that's about where he stands in the group.
Wow. All right.
Right.
So Venaris pro Throkar, Procar, if you will, and somewhat skeptical, I guess, of Srodid. So Venaris is not convinced that the help and the assistance that Srodid's given the group has really been beneficial.
Well, goblins and assorted especially are like witches. Where they have really useful spells and stuff, but under all that usefulness is someone that cannot be trusted.
Oh wow.
And who definitely has a cauldron hidden somewhere, and we need to find it.
Now, if we found that cauldron, do you suspect that it would have been predominantly used to make tea?
No, I believe that it's where he's been keeping the rest of that burb that he acquired in the Hollows. That kind of just like he took the foot off of it, and then we just haven't heard what happened to the rest of it since.
You
Or,
have
yeah.
you've actually just right there hit upon one of the polls actually that was on Forbidden Land Z message boards last week, and there were a series of fans that were going on and on and on because they were trying to figure out. I believe it was 2 episodes ago when he transformed, when he went into beast mode. Was it 2 episodes? It was two. Yes, 2 episodes ago that he went. So it was episode 9. He went into beast mode,
Yes.
and when he went into beast form, the question was, where did his fighting staff go? But more importantly, he has allegedly had this bird on him the entire campaign. Is the bird stored in the crocodile?
Yeah, I have to say I'm not sure.
Okay.
That would definitely be a question for the Black Veil, not the Black Dale, but the Black Veil. Unfortunately, it's hard to get a hold of him these days. Being a famous DM now, uh, on the level of Critical Role, and just being hired out to DM so many other games on a consistent and constant basis. It's just hard to get a hold of him nowadays. I did have a brief cell phone conversation with him the other day about how I've been catfished on Tinder, but that was just because he accidentally butt dialed me, and I think he was just trying to awkwardly just get through the fact that he accidentally butt dialed me using his iPhone.
Wow. So he was just trying to play it off.
Right.
And interesting. And one of the bigger things that you just brought up there is that I know a lot of the fans are also wondering is you're saying that the voice actor behind Venaris is single.
That yes, that is true.
Wow. Okay. And so if there were to be a spin-off Forbidden Lands dating series or show, uh, would you consider perhaps starring in it?
Now, uh, obviously, the ladies that are on the Forbidden Land messaging board, whether they be ladies or actual men in real life, uh, have only heard my voice. So if I were to partake in the Forbidden Land Z spin-off dating service, I'd have to be like covered, and they would just have to like listen to my voice and just get to know me through it like that, and then uncover my horribly disturbing and ugly face, and then yeah, and then they can just make their decision based off of that.
Oh wow! So this is going to be kind of like what is it? The proposal mixed with Phantom of the Opera,
Right.
mixed with the dating show. Okay.
I consider myself more of a Deadpool lookalike.
You're saying Deadpool post
Yes.
horrific scarring. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, wow. All right. So is that why you actually got into voice work? Was because you were unable to go outside without being accosted?
Right.
Oh, okay.
And I've just been able to like seduce pizza women through the phone, and when they
Seduce
come to my
pizza.
door, when they come to the door with my pizza and I open it, they just drop it. I don't have to tip them.
Wow.
And
Okay. So
yeah,
arbitrage pizza opportunity
right.
using your hideously disfigured face. Interesting. That's kind of a trick that I guess I hadn't considered before is to scare the pizza man or pizza woman and cajole them into leaving without seeking compensation, but also providing you with the product for free. So,
Well, there is just certain things that working for the government, working for the Department of Defense, kind of just it teaches you different skills. Like you might be better at getting day drunk, and I might be better at, you know, actual life skills.
wow. I don't know if that's. I can't tell if that's a call out or not on terms of
No.
my drinking habits or the hours that I do engage therein. But I can tell you that right now it's just water in the glass. We are not drinking any kind of toxin of any sort. It's just regular good old agua. But speaking of drinking, I know that
Right.
Venaris is a prolific alcoholic. Um, on last week's episode, on the behind the scenes shots that they had for last week's episode, we did see that the voice actor for Throkar was drinking what he had called or dubbed a Throhito, which was a concoction that was a nod to throated, some kind of mojito made with tea. If you were going to design a cocktail for Venaris, what would it be?
Now, I've thought of this because being a voice actor, it requires a certain amount of method acting, and I've had to, when I said to myself, I need to be a voice actor for a really drunk, depressed guard. I was like, well, I already have the depression down, so I just need to find a source of alcohol to get myself to the point where I'm just completely blackout drunk. So I decided to start method acting, where I would, just destroy myself and my liver with alcohol, and then just scream voice lines at my horrified roommates, who then were inspired by me and my method acting, and began to do the same thing as was heard in several episodes of Forbidden Land Z, in the background of my roommates having just the time of their lives, getting method acting drunk.
Right.
Um,
They.
but on the topic of a drink
Mhm.
that I would make for myself, not being a man very experienced with the cocktail, that is a story I have to tell later because it's fucking hilarious. Uh, but I'd say it would have to be something that would resemble dwarven ale, and in my mind, dwarven ale is kind of like a yellow, like a golden drink with like froth. So it would be like uh, it'd be like Heineken mixed with like insane amounts of vodka and whiskey, and just destroying your liver the second you drink it. But like obviously, it's only meant for alcoholics.
Oh,
Right.
interesting. Okay, so you're saying vodka, whiskey, and Heineken. Wow, that's
And that's dwarven ale.
that's what dwarven ale is. Okay,
That's exactly what it is.
yeah, because in the description you just provided, it almost sounded more enticing, as if it was almost like a butterbeer or something much more casual. But you're saying this is like if Jets drank jet fuel and we're like, whoa, this jet fuel is too powerful. This is for NASA.
Right.
Okay.
And obviously, dwarves being short and more on the heftier side would be able to absorb this kind of thing. And I would like to compare. I like to compare myself to dwarves, uh, considering on the topic of Tinder again, women do not like men over under 6 foot. A lot of them are like, well, if you're under 6 foot, don't talk to me. But I say, if you're under 6 foot, you can handle your alcohol. You know what I'm saying?
That's your bio line, right?
That is.
That is okay.
Well, also, looking for a woman to help me build my Lego Death Star is another part of that.
And so far have not found the woman to help you complete the Death Star trench.
I must say, ever since I put that on my bio, I've gotten a lot more likes and I've got a lot more questions, uh, as if to prove that they're reading my bio. But every time I get into a conversation with them about it, they just kind of drop it, and it just makes me feel like they're just not interested in my Death Star, which is just not something that I'm looking.
Right now, does your do you ever think that maybe your career here in the voice acting world and that in that kind of stardom has sort of obscured your ability to complete tandem Lego sets?
No, I mean, I honestly, my other job is really the thing that's stopping me from completing my Lego Death Star. It just has me moving around a lot, and just long hours of getting not paid at all, and and very like inconsistent hours too. Some one day you'll be getting out of work at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The other day you'll be getting out at like 10 o'clock at night. Just because why the hell not?
Yikes! That sounds difficult to then lead a uh, a good robust dating life just because of your limited and questionable and uncertain availability.
Right, and honestly, I need a female that is just willing to like pick up the phone and go. You know what I mean? There's no like, hey, we'll do this next week. It's hey, we're doing this in an hour kind of
Oh,
deal.
wow. Okay, so you need like a ride or dwarf chick is what we're saying here, ladies and gentlemen. So if any of you Forbidden Land Z fans out there, are interested in pursuing this magnificent gentleman, I would recommend that you get within a 99. Is your radius set to 99 miles? I don't know what you have your radius set to on Tinder.
I don't even know.
Okay, we're gonna say 25. I think 25 might be the default. So we'll say 25-mile radius of him at any given point in time, and swipe right hastily until you see a man who looks like an avocado, hate fucked and older, more ugly avocado, and that's risky. So
Yep.
great. All right. And in that case, not to shift gears too greatly, and I'm sure we'll circle back several points in time, might even figure eight back. I don't know what path we're going to take, which is what's so great about these podcasts, these live ones that we're doing, is there was an episode last week
For
after
once.
after a little bit of a hiatus due to scheduling and due to some other specials and stuff that were being aired in the normal night and time of FLZ. So why don't you hit us with that recap so we can, just get into the meat of what occurred on last week's episode.
Right. I was about to say the same thing. Just we need to get this moving along. So in the last episode of Forbidden Land Z, episode 10, we ended with the beginning of a battle against seemingly indestructible Ant-Men. Veneris and the Crocodile were surrounded. Veneris was attacked several times, and his armor and his sword failed him because he wasn't rolling gear dice, and for some reason was just awful at rolling that night. So he collapsed out of the exhaustion of attempting to fend off 4 Ant-Men at a time, and began to crawl away, and was 1 point of damage away from completely dying. And a lot of fans on the Forbidden Lands forum messenger board kind of held their breath as as it was occurring, and then the episode ended, and so many messages were on the board. I had to keep quiet about it. I couldn't be on Tinder, not I couldn't be on Twitter, I couldn't be on Facebook. I just had fans asking over and over. It was sort of a Glenn from The Walking Dead kind of thing. Like, is Glenn gonna survive? Because they know that we film our episodes in advance. And I just had to keep completely quiet about it, about whether or not Veneris was going to survive. We come back to episode 11 of the Forbidden Land Z. Veneris still on the ground. Our heroes standing by to see exactly what's going to happen with that 1 point of damage. And then the party suddenly realized that Nervea was a thing, a healer who we had not been using at all. Still not convinced though, as rolling dice and critical failures are still a thing. Nervea walks over to where Veneris is and casts her Raven Bones upon him, and almost fully restores everything that he has, aside from his agility, which is down 1 point, allowing him to stand and defend her. But as I said, it was sort of a holding our breath moment, as we thought that she could roll a critical failure, and the fact is that the dice were not really in Veneris' favor for the end of the last episode and sort of the beginning of this episode. We have Sorted and German kind of witness Veneris standing, and despite this, iconic and heroic image of just absolute strength and bravery, decided to run away. First, German running through the crowd of Ant-Men away and out, trying to escape the T chamber that we had found ourselves in, and Stroded kind of backing away after shedding his crocodile skin and accidentally giving himself some sort of boil disease that resembles gonorrhea. So, Schroeder, you might want to get yourself tested if you're listening to this. We then are left with Veneris covering Nervea and Throkar fending off two Ant-Men, just as Veneris is fending off two Ant-Men, with only one Ant-Man dead from German the episode prior, having knocked him out of the battle. And so the fight began. Many Ant-Man slashes were made. Many hero slashes were made. The Black Veil was very pissed because I was reading my handbook the entire time for once and was discovering that my abilities, or rather Veneris' abilities, are way more powerful than I originally thought. With the ability to parry during every single round of combat, meaning that if an Ant-Man wanted to attack Veneris, it wouldn't matter because you could just roll and parry.
Right.
And this allowed very little damage to be done to Veneris. In fact, no damage at all being done pretty much the entire session. And constant parries and deflects happening while Veneris was landing hit after hit, and Trokar was landing hit after hit despite being hit a couple times and his armor being shredded by Ant-Man claws. At the end of this somewhat tense battle, the Ant-Men lay dead on the floor, one of them still rocking in the corner, while German and Strode kind of observed from the background and had kind of run off to explore while Throkar and Veneris fought to the death against the Ant-Men. And the dust settled, and Veneris and Throkar stood there gasping for breath, their weapons covered in ichor. And German approaches them and promptly begins looting the bodies that he had no part in killing, other than one of them. And Strodid sort of just continuing to meander around and kind of search for what we assume is either more burb or more tea. We then had a little bit of a debacle between German and Veneris. Things got kind of heavy with the emotions because German suggested that if the places were reversed and German was the fantastic, gloriously bearded, tall, handsome warrior that Veneris was, with the strength of a lion, and Veneris was the pipsqueak, very skinny, very unnerving and creepy half elf that German is, that he would have run away too. But Veneris' pride in his abilities is that he will never betray his friends, and he's German and sort of running away is a sort of betrayal, which is why at the beginning of this this live broadcasted stream podcast, I mentioned that he sort of doesn't trust Schroeder and he sees German as a coward. We then headed to the door, the large wooden door on the right hand side rather than the left hand side, as German kind of saw a shadow that spooked him on the left hand side. So we attempted to get the door open and were met with little success. So Veneris offered himself. He said, "Hey, I could probably get the door down." And everyone in the party just kind of looked at him and laughed because the last time he wielded Trokar's hammer to destroy something, it did not end well for him. So he takes Trokar's hammer after Trokar kind of gave him a little bit of a human being disabled joke, and he already to swing. And when he swung that hammer with all of his strength and hit the door, the entire thing collapsed. In fact, we assumed that the entire cavern would collapse with such an amazing hit. To which Veneris looked upon the destroyed door and commented that it must have been dwarven infrastructure because it was shit. Kind of sounded like this. It must have been dwarven infrastructure. Very weak. And then continued on to find a couple of Rust brothers kind of chilling around. And German decided he would prove himself as a not coward and someone that would help the party. by approaching and speaking to them while the rest of the group hid in the shadows. He managed to scare the absolute lights out of the leader of the Rust Brothers in the area, while there was some sort of entity rushing towards them, and the Rust Brothers kind of like ran back to where our characters are kind of sitting, and a throw car acting as a submarine beneath the waters of a hallway that we were within. They kind of run between this excellently planned pincer, and that's where we ended, with the assumption that we would kind of just jump out. Throwcar would launch torpedoes, and Veneris would start slashing at the Rush Brothers as soon as they passed. So yeah, that is where we ended the session. We moved about all of, I'd say, 50 feet, and killed 4 monsters that none of us counted XP for because we forgot.
Yeah, that is incredibly tense. For the amount of combat and the amount of tense moments and the complete reversal of what had occurred in episode 10. That was certainly something that I was certainly, I know I was on the edge of my seat watching. I was like, where is this going to go? What is going to happen with these heroes? And so the fact that they managed to make it out, and you also mentioned you mentioned Nervea. Do you think that if Nervea had not been there, that the heroes would have perished?
Oh, more than definitely. I say, I don't want to gloat about Veneris, and I don't see this as gloating. It's just more of facts. If Veneris had died and Throated and German had run away, Throwcar would have been next. Obviously, if Nervea was not there, she wouldn't have been there to die. And the Ant-Men would have either left German and Throated alone or hunted them down and killed them. And then German and Throated would have stumbled upon either what was that shadow that scared the shit out of German, or would have somehow figured out a way to open that door without Veneris' mighty man muscles, and then stumbled upon the Rust Brothers and also met their untimely demise. And the Forbidden Land Z would have been over, and many fans would probably be crushed. There would probably be a relapse episode, maybe a high school reunion. It would not have ended well.
Wow. And so speaking of kind of reunion episodes and stuff like that, there's also been some rumor that I've seen going around online that Venaris and Throwcar might be getting a buddy cop spin-off show where Venaris is a city guard and Throwcar is kind of like the out of town deputy, sort of in the vein of Eddie Murphy, Beverly Hills Cop. Have you been contacted about this? And if so, are you down for it? I mean, are you interested in such a spin-off series?
Now, obviously, we've been contacted about a lot of similar, endeavors. We have that show that you were talking about, which obviously, if whoever I haven't personally been contacted, but if someone wanted to come forward and make that show, I'd say it'd be an amazing show. I have heard things like a spin-off of the Hurt Locker, where Veneris plays Sergeant J. Samwell, and Throwcar takes the place of Jeremy Renner as the sergeant that kind of comes in and is the badass and kind of messes things up. In a time traveling movie where they somehow lose their memories of the Forbidden Lands and travel forward in time to Afghanistan and start disarming bombs together. I've also heard rumors of a show where Throwcar plays the large blue lady, the Na'vi from Avatar, while Veneris plays the crippled Marine in that movie.
Okay,
but that might also
was
just
that
be
Sam Worthington, or who was that played? Was it Sam Worthington? I don't know who played the
I
main
forgot
character in Avatar.
I definitely forgot about that. But yeah, there's been many movies. I could also be confusing the movies with the multiple fan fictions that have arisen around Trokar and Veneris. There is now on the messaging board an entire section just taped off for Veneris and Trokar fan fiction. It seems that those two characters are kind of the focal point of all the fan fictions. Sometimes Schroeder gets thrown in there too. Sometimes they're gay. Sometimes they're just buddy cop fan fictions. Other times it just gets really weird.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that must be a section on the boards that I don't have access to. Maybe that's maybe I put in my age too young or something. I don't have the 18 plus sections. But
Well, whoever gave me access to that, I hate you, and
wow.
I'm never gonna get that image out of my head.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
But speaking of the different sections that are for the adult non-minor users, and when I say minor, I don't want anybody to get confused. Dwarves over the age of 18 that's minor with an O, not with an E. So the minors, non-minors, adults, if you will, sections. There is Forbidden Lands singles ads, and we do have a couple here.
Ryan, I have 3 statements to give.
I think. Oh, I'm sorry. You getting another call? Maybe you are. I don't know for sure. All right. Well, Risky has he's had to hop on another call. He's might be his agent. I'm not exactly sure who it is. But one of the things I do want to address, and he can just jump back in whenever he's off that call. One of the things I want to address that is super cool to all of our listeners is how interesting the plot and the storyline is in the Forbidden Lands Z, and it's one of the most magnificent storytelling contraptions of our generation. A lot of people want to say Game of Thrones. George R.R. Martin is really the storyteller behind the true epics of our day. A lot of people disagree with that now that series is over, but we're not going to get into that. What we're going to get into is the fact that the fine folks over at Fria Ligan, over there in the delightful country of Sweden, and their agent provocateur, the Black Veil, have concocted a storytelling mechanism by which we record a show every week with no script, there is no knowledge of what could happen. So every single episode is essentially akin to Chris Tucker hosting the BET Awards, because anything can happen. It could be just, we don't know where or what is going to happen, where we're going to end up, who we're going to interface with, who the enemies could be, who the good guys could be. Any of this is all totally unknown to the actors. A lot of times I think that there was some talk about how they didn't give the actor who plays Spider-Man in the Avengers a full script because they were afraid that he was actually going to inadvertently leak it all. So they just gave him his lines. This is even less than that. There's no lines. There's no script. I think that Vale has a thin framework that he sort of figures out, and then where it goes from there is just up to the collective creativity that is pulsing through the room, through the recording studio, as sort of the lifeblood of the show. And it is truly just a very powerful thing to be a party to, a very powerful thing to watch happen. And sometimes I know that people have also said, Throkar is very quiet. He doesn't say a lot during these episodes. And I think that's due to just, being a mere mortal in the presence of greatness that is being fashioned by all of these titans of the voice acting and game mastering communities coming together and creating this show live for people to ingest, people to consume, people to create into lifestyles, which is really where we've gone at this point. It is just an absolute lifestyle for many of our viewers, and we never would have predicted that, especially in such a short run. Really only paralleled, almost, I won't even say completely paralleled, by Firefly. Having had one season and having people still talking about that, Joss Whedon got about halfway there. The Black Veil, all the way there, 100%. So, if anybody wants to go ahead and fight me on that one, I will be outside the studio for a smoke break after we're done recording. But that's the truth. So you can deal with it. Period. Let's see. Do we have Risky back on the live?
Yes.
Feed? There we
Apologies. Apologies for that. My mother gets very excited when I get new movie offers. That was another one. That was actually the confirmation of the buddy cop show. She was getting the call, and it was meant for me, and she just kind of like burst into my room and just wanted to give me the news, obviously unaware that we were recording right now.
Yeah, no, but I mean, that's not to jump in too quickly, but I know I did. That is the kind of family man that Risky is. He is at home on the homestead and taking care of his family, making sure that they are well taken care of before he goes on tour, because he's going on tour here very shortly. I think we're within like a day of you heading on your Asian Pacific tour. Is that correct?
That is correct. I will be visiting exotic locations such as Tokyo, Japan for the remainder of 2 hours, Seattle, Washington for 2 hours, Okinawa, Japan for 3 years. And perhaps within that time period, branching out from that sort of tour headquarters on Okinawa to head to places like New Zealand, Australia, Thailand, Singapore, all over the Pacific. So, if you're a fan of the Forbidden Land Z podcast / live streaming on demand subscription based service, you will be very starstruck to know that I, the voice actor of Daenerys, Risky, not to be confused with Risklock Holmes, will be attending a visit to many Asian Pacific countries.
Awesome, and I know we have a fledgling fan base and following in Japan. I don't necessarily know how big Forbidden Land Z has gotten in Japan, but I assume that it's definitely growing, and with you going over there, it's just sure to follow that it's going to get absolutely insane.
Right, and unfortunately, with the time zone change, it may limit my ability to be on the show. This show, Forbidden Land Z, and the Forbidden Land, the actual area where we play the game / the real life phenomena. So while I attempt to gather more fans of the franchise overseas, but it's what you got to do to keep yourself famous and keep our unlikely group of friends famous across the world and in specifically Pacific Asia.
Right. That is Risky. The tip of the PR spear for Forbidden Land Z, going out basically door to door, if you will, in the Pacific Theater to remind everybody that you don't have to just watch anime. You don't have to just deal with that. You don't have to, giant robots are cool, but really what's cooler is a group of friends saving the fucking world. And by saving the fucking world, I mean getting rich and probably building a stronghold at some point.
Right.
And so that's awesome. Let's see. What do you have anything else that you would like to add, or any shout outs that you have, or any theories or anything that you've heard of about the show that you want to just air out on here and give people definitive answers to?
I do want to talk about the debate between the various deities that have sprung up.
Oh,
Some people, it seems to be pretty evenly divided. Uh, some people like Worm. They're fans of Raven, fans of Hemi, for whatever reason, and fans of I can't even remember the guy's name. The really small time dwarven god.
small time dwarven god.
Yeah,
Let me try and
really
look that up
really
here.
insignificant.
Mm.
Would be considered one of the worst, like lesser gods of the Forbidden Lands.
Right. Yeah, I'm being told by one of the interns that it is huge. Is apparently the
Huge.
guy's name.
Oh, that's a very, I'd say, large name for someone with such little impact. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Um,
Yeah. That's possible. I guess. Uh, I would say by naming himself huge, perhaps he is aiming to really completely change the pantheon of the Forbidden Lands in a game in a game plan similar to that of I would say to give a rap analogy, Biggie Smalls. I mean, Biggie is a very robust name, indicative of large size. Huge, the same. So, but you're saying that you don't think that he's really doing much.
well, just like Biggie Smalls, he had a very small impact on the world that he was attempting to impact, and then at the end of it, he just ended up. So,
Oh, wow.
so much
So,
like Biggie Smalls, I think Huge is going down.
oh my goodness.
Not sure how it's gonna happen, but I'm just saying, there is a giant snake in the sky, and snakes often bite.
Giant snake in the sky. Snakes often bite. Woo. That is brutal. And the coolest thing is, as I was saying while you were discussing the new deals and stuff that you'd received the call on, the coolest thing is that every episode that we do of this, we have no idea what's going to happen. So it's totally possible we could see a clash of the gods in an actual episode. I mean, essentially, like a giant snake in the sky fighting a giant dwarf in the
Uh,
sky. I
isn't
don't.
he a giant, which also combines to make him huge?
He's a giant.
Like giant squared is huge.
He's okay. He's giant, but like giant times giant.
Right.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the question is, at that point, would we know whether or not he was a giant dwarf?
I I think that is definitely up for speculation. But the idea of a giant dwarf kind of is a there's a word for it for something that cancels something else out.
I believe that is that a tautology? Is what we're
No,
no.
it's
Okay.
like describing a word, right? And it's like a word describes another. Like it's two descriptive words that cancel each other out.
So
So like
like,
saying like giant dwarf is like saying a huge small. You know what I mean?
or a biggie small.
Right, right. A biggie small.
Right. And so you're saying it's two. So it's like double
A
adjectives,
double negative.
a double negative.
It is a double negative, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
Hang on one moment. I'm getting another call.
Okay.
Okay, that was a really quick call.
Yeah, it must have been. It could have been another one of those random butt dials from Vale.
It might have been.
It might have been. Okay, yeah. So maybe an oxymoron or something like that. I'm not sure. I don't want to. We're not here to
Something
debate
like
the
that.
English language, but
Right.
what?
But we might be able to see a clash of the gods, or perhaps a clash between followers of the gods. As of now, we have a combination of Raven, Hemi, I believe German worships Hemi, Worm, and Huge, the lesser awful small god, against Hemi, the forces of Hemi rather. Um,
Hmm.
so, obviously we'll be opening up polls on the Forbidden Lands messaging board about that. But other than that, I think it is time for us to start wrapping this up,
Yeah.
Eric.
Oh, calling me by my government. Interesting.
Government name.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I do wish you the best on your Asian Pacific tour, bringing the good word of the good people at Freiligen to the masses in the Asian theater there. I think it's going to be spectacular. We definitely want some regular updates, maybe some podcasts from there if you're interested.
I'm planning on doing vlogs.
Oh,
Definitely stuff like that. Just spreading the word, making sure people are informed. Can I do the outro?
can you do the outro? This thing will not end until you do the outro, my man.
All right, you ready?
Absolutely.
And that is it for now. We will see what happens next time on the next episode of Forbidden Land Z.